Hello, Judy.
Hello there. How are you, Richard?
I'm doing great. It's Tuesday, everyone. It's not Thursday. This is a special day for us.
It still begins
Because
with a T.
it still begins with two and it still ends in a Y.
Right. Close enough.
But we both are so busy right now. It's just like finding the scheduling for both of us, which is all good.
Yeah.
And our guests today, they're very, very busy. They all have incredible projects that we're going to talk about. But before we begin, what have you seen lately that you highly recommend to everyone?
Oh my God. I saw the Mercy Beatles. They were phenomenal. I mean, you felt like you were with the original Beatles, truly. And they do a whole show. They show clips from A Hard Day's Night and clips from, various, Beatles shows actual live shows. They were the house band at the Cavern Club for 10 years. And if the show comes where you are, don't miss it. I mean, really,
Mercy Beatles.
The Mercy Beatles.
Now, why do they call themselves the Mercy Beatles?
Because that was originally, where the Beatles come from. Okay, it was the Mersey River goes through Liverpool.
Wow,
and all these
I
guys
didn't know
are
that.
also originally from Liverpool, so they're very authentic. I mean, it was, and they're striking in terms of their musical quality and how much they sound like the actual Beatles. Just
That's
astounding.
amazing. Did you ever see the Beatles?
I did, yeah, back in the day. I
Wow.
did. And I interviewed Paul McCartney years later, and he played acoustic guitar for me backstage live when I was at ABC. So, hey.
I had a guy, Jim Wilson, on the show last week, and he has written an incredible book. But he has something in the book about, he became a piano tuner, and he came in and he did the piano tuning for Paul McCartney, and they became fast friends. And this wonderful, incredible relationship, and the stories that he told about him, and how so down to earth he truly is.
Yeah. Yeah, he is a very, very down to earth. And Linda Eastman, his first wife, who passed away, her dad, she grew up right near me. I grew up in White Plains, New York, and she grew up right near me in Westchester. And her dad and my dad were friends. So all these connections,
This is my 6 degrees of separation from the Beatles through you. So we're going to bring on our first guest. Before we do, it's mystery question time. So there are 4 cards laid out, 1 through 4.
4.
And your card is, what's something that you will never do again in your career?
Will never do again in my career. I will never do anything without thoroughly investigating exactly what's involved, really looking. And this is more pertains to my earlier career than to this career. When I was doing television and doing news and all of that. And I accepted a job that I always wished I hadn't. And I should have known better. And I would have known better if I'd done my homework. So always do your homework.
So, Judy, I want to ask you, you live in Naples, Florida now. And do you have, what is the art scene like there? Do you have a lot of opportunities? You just mentioned the Mercy Beatles, but do you have a lot of opportunities to see a lot of different shows?
Oh, yeah. I also saw the Tina Turner show this week. That played the touring company.
Okay.
Was at Artist Naples down here. And Artist Naples has incredible shows coming through all the time, and a fantastic philharmonic as well. There's Theater Zone. There's the Gulf Shore Playhouse. There's the Naples Players Theater. So there's lots and lots of theater. Then there are additionally, there are comedy clubs, and there are a couple of places that do, tribute bands and that kind of thing. So you can be busy every day of the week.
And are you finding then when you go to these shows that they are at capacity, or are there still seats available?
99% of the time they're sold out.
Okay, that's good to hear, because since the pandemic, it has gotten harder and harder for artists to bring their audiences back, and a lot of people want to live stream and see their shows live, but there's nothing like the experience of being in the audience with other people sharing in that experience. And here in New York, on any given night, you have so many choices. And I want to talk about one particular choice, and that's a new play by Helene Galek. And I am so thrilled that she's here today to talk about this. It just opened, and everything that I'm hearing about this show, Helene, is off the charts. So, what is the source of this play, first of all? And are you surprised? I mean, we all desire this, but are you surprised at the response that you're getting with this show?
Yes to everything. So how it started is I have along with acting and performing, I have always written as a child in high school. I like to joke that I got through my college literature classes by being a good writer, because I would, like, if I got a 1,000-page book, I'd read like 10 pages and go, okay, that's enough. And my writing was good enough to BS my way through it.
I did
And
that.
yeah, it was a very helpful skill. So obviously in those days, there was no such thing as self-publishing or anything like that. And even though I wrote stuff, I never really thought much about it. I worked in sales also, so I did a lot of the cool newsletters, and everybody always complimented me on that. But interestingly enough, when the pandemic started and all these Zoom writing groups came up, that's when I really started writing in earnest. And so this particular play, and this is another thing, like you were just saying, what about, like, what sometimes we say things like when people, I used to love essays and poetry and short stories, and somebody said, well, why don't you write a play or a film? And I'd always say, I don't do dialogue. And I've learned over the last couple of years, don't say I don't do, because you never know. This is actually my second one act. I had written one a couple years ago that I'm actually going to adapt to a short film. But to get back to this came from a writer's prompt. So one of my writers groups called Shop Talk. I have a couple different ones, because some, like Shop Talk, give you feedback, and other writing groups are just for you to hear it. And I was assigned 2 men, like 55, 60, and I was like looking at them and going, we're going to write about them. And I looked and looked, and I went, they reminded me of Zoo's story. So I went to the drama bookstore, and I just wanted to, I read it quickly to make sure my memory was, still remembering the story. And so it's spoofing it, and I call it with a little cable guy thrown in, but it's also illustrating the way people have, especially in the political arena, a conversational, quote unquote, discourse. There are some people, when you're trying to talk rationally to them and give them facts, the other side going da 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 da, and they're just fighting. Like, you may be explaining why Social Security is important, and they'll just say, yeah, like the Dems want to take out, they're just parroting things. And you should leave this conversation, but sometimes you don't. So that's what this play is sort of illustrating.
Well, I was watching Bill Maher a few weeks ago, and he said there should be, a hashtag or something that says, I don't need to respond. We can just simply walk away. We don't have to weigh in on every single post that we see.
I think I was doing that a lot during the last election, not this election, but the last one. And then I went, you know what? Most of the time I'm preaching to the choir, so my friends
Right.
think like me. So yeah, I've done that even with certain friends that are not political. I look at stuff and then I went, it's like the song "Walk On By," scroll on by.
Did any happen to see Jimmy Kimmel the other night when one of his people went out into the field to interview people, and they were acknowledged Trump supporters, and Kimmel said to them, how did you react when Biden did, and then filled in things that Trump had said or done?
Yeah.
And it was entirely negative. Okay.
Well, he does that a lot, and it really is a commentary.
Real commentary. And then he turned around and said, oh, you know what? I goofed. Actually, Trump said that. And the response was completely, well, he meant, da 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 da, and it was totally understandable. It was really enlightening, actually. Just to see.
Well, that's cult behavior, and it's gaslighting, and that gets talked about in the play. So originally it was a 5-minute play, and then actually I submitted. I get a lot of a newsletter that has playwright, where you can send in different plays, and somebody was looking for a 1-minute play. It was a new anthology, and I went, oh, let me make it a minute, and I did, and it got published. But then I decided to expand it to 10 minutes because it's easier to sell to theaters who want to do 10-minute festival, 10-minute one acts, or even some of the one acts in the show, in my show, are a little longer, but it's always good to have like one short one. So that's
So
where that
this piece is now 10 minutes, or has it expanded?
no, it's 10 minutes. 10 minutes is enough, because when you're arguing, over a bench, you can go. I said, no, 10 minutes is good. And I kept it, like less is more. And I was very thrilled it got picked. The festival is wonderful. It's the first time I'm a writer producer. It's been going on since February 8th. We're the last program. We're program 14, and everybody gets 3 nights. And friends can tell you this about me, and I can say I'm very supportive. As you know, I try to go to as many shows as possible. As a casting director too, I want to go to see shows so I can see actors, and I am like overwhelmed at all my friends who are coming to see this.
Well, you mentioned to me before we went live that for those who have not been able to get to the show, tonight they're live streaming, and you're going to do a talk back afterwards.
Correct.
So if you can put in the private chat the link for the live stream tonight, I will share this. Or do you have it?
Well, the one that I put in, if they go into that link, and then they look at, I think there's something called like the virtual hub.
Right.
So they should pick today's date, February 27th at 8:30. Now, the good part is, let's say you're watching it and I don't know, a neighbor drops in or something. You've got 2 days to finish it. If you can't watch it tonight, but you've purchased it, you have until March 5th to watch it.
Oh, that's good. Well, I want to see it tonight. I haven't been able to get there. So I'm going to tune in tonight, and I've got it right here. So anyone grab this link, and if it's going by too fast, you can call me and I will get it to you.
Thank you.
So what was that experience like for you to hear actors saying your dialogue on stage for the first time?
Well, it was exciting. It wasn't the first time, though, because I had this read at a couple of my other writer groups. What was interesting, and I hope this means the writing is good, is that no matter the actors brought their own personalities. So I heard different things about it. I also heard when things landed sometimes differently because of the actor. But the director I hired is amazing. He directed me in a play last summer. It was a one act. He also directed a couple of my friends. And I went, he's perfect to do this, to give it shape so it's not stagnant. In fact, I complimented him. So I did see it last Saturday was the first night. As I said, we only get 3 nights. And people were laughing at the direction because this was not in my script. I just started the dialogue, and he added something at the end. So this is the importance of a good director too.
That's great. Well, I, as an actor myself, sometimes it's a blessing to have the playwright in the room. Sometimes it's a curse to have the playwright in the room. It sounds to me as if it would be a blessing to have you in the room because you relinquish control, if you will, to the director and let his vision come through.
Yes, I found myself a little resisting, which means I'm a writer now. It's funny because of our scheduling. I came to one rehearsal, but it was toward the end, and I had no judgment. One of them said, who I know, said, "Oh, like I forgot a line," and I'm like, you know what, it's rehearsal. Well, I remember when the director called me and he said, "Do you realize on this line?" This question never gets answered. And I went, wow, you're the first person who's picked that up. Okay. And he said, this is what I came up with. And I went, okay. And I wasn't sure it was funny. He goes, don't worry, I'm going to make it funny. I went, okay. So then at the end, he wasn't sure about a particular clue. See, I also have the other character do like a Jim Carrey kind of cable guy thing where he keeps throwing movie quotes in. I'm a huge lover of movie quotes. And it's interesting to see what age groups get what, and so he wasn't sure somebody would get one of them. And I went, well, I think think it's pretty well known. But if you want, I can add a couple lines like, hey, it won 2 Oscars. And I said, how does that work? And he said, yeah. So we compromised. But it's funny. I felt like the first time my shoulders were going up and I went, no, you know what it's like as an actor. When sometimes you ask a playwright, well, it's a little awkward in this part, I just saw a funny meme on that. You know, the light bulb joke. How many light bulbs does it? How many writers does it take to change a light bulb? No, I'm not changing anything.
Well, I want to bring on our next guest, but before we do, Judy, do you have any questions?
No, yeah, I want to hear also about your age activism.
Oh, yes. Well, first of all, what's funny, I just have to tell one thing. I'm very jealous about the Beatles because I always said I was about 4 years too young to go to a concert, 4 years to go to Woodstock. I kind of missed it. I did get to kiss Sting once. Sting came to my restaurant on the eve of Paul's second marriage. He wasn't there. So I'm very jealous, but no, I'm very happy for you. I'm sure it was wonderful. What it means is I did write an essay that's gotten published by a woman's cultural empowerment group called the Three Tomatoes, and I'm reworking it.
I know them very well.
Yes, and I'd like to submit it to Ethel, which is part of AARP, and there's a couple places. Basically, we've come out of the closet in so many groups, including neurodivergent, non-binary, transgender, and people still are really coy about age, or they think if they make a self-deprecating joke about it, or, oh, you're not supposed to say it, and I've got a big birthday coming up in 3 weeks. And so I'm very excited about it. And people will go, oh, you don't look it. And I went, it's okay if I look it. You don't have to say that. Just say, yeah, happy birthday. Like I'm alive. And so that's what I mean by age activism. It seemed like no matter what decade I was in, people felt it necessary to tell me I didn't look it. Like should never look my age. I should never, oh no, that's bad. And it starts getting into our head so that when presidential choices aside, we're already picking on, it's not your grandfather's 80. I mean, it's people are different. So that's what I mean, that I want to empower. I don't want people to make jokes. So, okay, I knew that in the dinosaur age, or, a lot of people are changing references like, oh, you may not know it, or it's before your time. And I'm thinking, if they don't know it, guess what? It's called Google. You Google up and, your reference. Anyway, that's what I'd like to go into the speaker part of that.
Well, send me the information on that, and I will see what I can do to get it out there as well.
Thank you.
Okay, there are 3 mystery cards. So pull a number 1 through 3, and then we'll bring up our next guest.
Thanks. 2.
And the question is, if you had to change your name, what would you change it to? I know already.
Well, that's interesting. I had a hard time with Helene growing up in the age where it was Patty, Kathy, Debbie, Susie. No ethnic names, no hippie names, no creative spellings. And I said, wow, nobody can pronounce it. I didn't like it till high school. But before I decided to reclaim it, I thought Jennifer and Laura, those were my 2 favorite names. I thought they were the ones I knew with that name were beautiful.
Yes.
You associate a name with a person.
Right.
So that's what I would have picked, but I'm happy with Helene now.
Well, I'm glad that Judy asked you about ageism because on Sunday night, I got the great opportunity to sing at a 95th birthday party. And I had performed also at his 90th birthday party. Wow. And as Lenny Watts, one of the performers, said, I performed at your 85th birthday, I performed at your 90th, now you're 95th. And if you keep alive, I've got a gig every 5 years. So, so it was a great celebration. But one of the exciting things for me was hearing this man sing again. Because I am such a fan of Craig Rubano, and he walked away, or it seemed that he walked away from cabaret for a while. But now, as Norma Desmond says, it's not a comeback, it's a return. And Craig, you and I are on the same trajectory with coming back after being away for a long time.
Yeah, well, why not? I think that fits in with what you've been talking about. Why not? Why not do a show at whatever age you are, wherever you are in your life? We always have a story to tell.
Yep.
And so I took a little detour, but it turns out it's not really a detour. It really added on to everything I had been doing to that point. And I just thought, well, this cabaret medium's one that I know. I know how to. I know how it's shaped, and I'd like to tell my story now with what has happened in the last decades. So the pandemic, I was thinking about it, but the end of the pandemic, and then some things happened. So now's the time. So I'm taking my moment, as the title of the show is "Take the Moment," and that's the case, that we have to take the moments when they come. So this was when it came for me to be able to do it, and I'm really excited. And it's so nice to meet you, Judi and Helene.
You as well.
Nice to meet you.
Been wonderful hearing.
I'm
How
very
does
curious
what
about.
you do? No, I'm curious. How does what you do dovetail with your work as a minister? You're at the University.
Oh.
Yes,
Hold that thought for just a moment.
I will.
Hold that thought, Judi, because I want to ask you, and then it's going to dovetail into what she just asked you. You were having a very successful cabaret career, at least from my perspective,
Mhm.
and you were on this wave, and then you decided to go in a completely different direction. Was that something that was building within you for a while? And did you feel that it was important for you to take a clean break from the world of cabaret before you went in that direction, and then go into Judy's question?
Well, okay. So ever since 9/11, I had been contemplating going back to school. I had left a PhD program a long time ago to do Broadway. It sounds funny, but that's what happened. My life's a little funny with the sort of the forks in the road. But I thought, if I'm going to go back to school, let's do it before, let's do it now. And what would I do? And after 9/11, I thought, I'm really interested in bringing people together across faith divisions. And so as I was doing my shows, as I was traveling, I would go to wherever there was like a seminary or a graduate school that had a program I was interested in, and I would pretend that I was a prospective student. And so during the day, like before the show, I would go and have an interview, like at Berkeley or Stanford, or or the schools in Chicago or Boston, or I just went around interviewing at schools. And then my sister moved to Princeton, and she said, "Well, you haven't come to Princeton." And I said, "Well, I did my undergrad at Yale, so I was like, Princeton." We have this little bit of a friction thing going. And I said, "But you know what? I'm going to come. I'm going to come visit Princeton." And I visited the school, and they gave me such a beautiful reception. And I thought, well, I could go there. And my sister had 2 young kids, and I thought, I'm going to be on the road and miss their whole lives. And so I thought, this is the moment to do this. I'll go back to school. I'll be a part of my nieces' lives as they're young, and we'll see what happens. My parents moved from St. Louis to 2 miles away, so now my entire family was within 2 miles of one another, so it became this new adventure. That was sort of what precipitated it at the time.
Wow. Well, hearing you sing the other night, and your voice is just glorious, Craig. Have you continued to sing all this time, or are you coming back to it? Did you find that those muscles were still very much there, or what was the experience like now coming back after all this time?
Yeah, well, it's I never stopped singing something or other, and in fact, that sort of through line of the communicative power of the human voice is the through line, to ministry, to counseling, to all the sort of things that I do now. So that never left. But doing one song here, one song there, it turns out is very different than doing a whole show. So I've had to build up my stamina in order to have the muscles back. I didn't think of it before because I was just singing all the time before, and I was very spoiled that I didn't have to sort of do too much warm up. I was always kind of ready. Now I have to do a little bit more preparation, but I did a test run of the show on Friday at my congregation as a benefit for them. A lot of these songs I've tried out on them over the last 5 years in services. And so these are songs that have kind of, been with me, been my friends along the way, and they're going to help me sort of tell the story in the show of how I came to be where I am now, and how my values really haven't really changed that much. It's just they've just taken on new forms, and you never can say what's going to happen next. But I see a through line. To other people, it seems like, wow, you did this and you did that. But when I was a tiny child, my parents moved my sister and me from St. Louis. I don't think either of my parents had ever been on a plane, and they thought, wouldn't it be a hoot to have a cultural experience? And we moved as a family to Buenos Aires, 8,000 miles away. And our eyes became open. We saw the world, and we never came back. I never lived in this country until college. So my whole life has been this kind of incredible adventure of like, where are we going to live next? Where are we going to go next? What are we going to see next? So I'm always ready to sort of pivot, but I do see the through line.
Well, it's very interesting. I mean, I had this epiphany moment when I was sitting watching everyone the other night, which was thrilling for me. I love being on stage, but I also love being in the audience. Mm-hmm. And as I was watching everyone, Lena Katrakis, who's been on this show, she made a comment. She said, we're a family, and I was looking around the room, and a lot of us really hit the cabaret scene at the same time. And it's like, and some people, have continued straight through. The pandemic took me in a different direction as well. But seeing everyone in that room still at this level in our lives, being able to create that magic on stage, it was like going back in time for me.
Somebody said that night, they said, I haven't been back to New York in 24 years, and it's the same people in the room. Have you been here this whole time?
I know, it felt that way. It was like time stood still.
Yeah, well, it was people who have been in Peter Levy's life. And so I guess it tended towards that. But no, it was wonderful to be there and to see so many dear friends and colleagues, and was just a gorgeous evening and full of all the good feels.
Well, you said a moment ago that prepping now for a full show takes a little bit more work. It does for all of us. But beyond the prep time, what feels different for you on stage in front of an audience now?
Well, so I haven't started the show yet. But I'll tell you, it feels like I'm going to have to be very open to whatever happens. And I don't seem like I won't necessarily have as much control over every moment. And you know what? I think that's a good thing, because I think some of the magic happens in living the moments as they come. So I feel very much kind of like open to the moment in a way that I was very kind of regimented. Like I have my plan, I have my songs, and I feel a little bit more open now. And I think it's going to be good for the story that I'm telling, because the story that I'm telling is all about how, there is an element of flexibility, which I have discovered that it's still a learning curve for me to be flexible, because I brought in Jeff Harner as a director, and then we brought in a bass player and did all these bass charts. And man, that first rehearsal with the bass, I felt like the whole rug had been pulled out from under me. I was like, what on earth is going on with that bass? And so I have to be a little flexible, and I think it's a good thing. So I'm learning as I do this too. I think I'm learning some new skills for life too.
How does your congregation react to this part of your life?
Well, they always sort of knew, because when I sing, everybody says like, you must have sung before. But I don't think they really knew. When the press release came out for this, some of them, read the press release and they were like, what? So I think that they didn't quite know. And I wasn't, Reverend Craig or Dr. Craig on Friday. I was just Craig. And it's really going to be the first time that I'm the full thing. I'm the minister, I'm the singer, I'm the scholar, I'm the kid from South America, I'm the son, I'm the brother, I'm the partner, all these things that I have tended to compartmentalize, and especially the minister thing, because when you go into seminary as a performer, you want to make a distinction between being on stage and being with people on the in the pulpit or on the bema or whatever. So, but this is like they're part of my story. So I wanted to do it with them first because they are part of the story that I'm going to tell, and I'm going to be both, you know, Craig the performer and Craig the minister and Craig the goat owner. So who knew I'd ever live in the countryside and have goats? I mean, it's like I'm an East Village guy and like all of a sudden I live in the country with goats. So you never know. But I'm going to be at all the things at once. So for the first time. So I don't know, maybe I'll just poof, maybe I'll just explode. But I think it's going to be good for me.
Well, you know, years ago when I mean, after I'd been in cabaret for a while, I got cast in Anything Goes, and I was playing Sir Evelyn Oakley. And I'll never forget the first rehearsal that we had. And there, Reno Sweeney and Evelyn Oakley are in the stateroom together, and she's trying to seduce him to throw everything off, if you know the story. And I performed the song, and my director said, "Now that was good. Now remember, it's only the two of you in this room," because I was playing to the audience. And it was like having to relearn everything, that because when you're in cabaret, you have got, there's so many levels of things that are going on for you as an artist when you're on that stage in front of an audience. And I'm sure it's the same thing with you in a congregation. But one of the things, and you can go with this or not, is that I think that being in front of a congregation, it's always about the parishioners. And as an artist on stage, and Helene and Judi, we all agree on this, it's always about the audience.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, I think, I mean, I'd love to hear from Helene and Judi too, but yes, it is about them. It is about them. And as my mother says to me every Sunday afternoon, she says, "Did you listen to your sermon?" Because sometimes it's so much about them that I don't hear my own message. And I think I'm trying to tell myself something every time I do a sermon. It's like, I really need to learn this. And she says, "I think maybe you should go back and listen to your sermon." But yeah, it's about the people that you're presenting. You know, Mabel Mercer always said she sings their emotions.
Oh, I like that. That's great. So there are two mystery cards here. I'm hoping that Lisa's going to join us. But her son's playing a Little League game today, and she didn't know if she was going to make it or not. So there are two cards here, Craig. One or two?
One or two? Two.
And your question is, well, it's a statement, and then you go with this. My actions are intentional, and they bring me closer to my goals. Do you feel that the goals that you are achieving are because of your intentions or because of your circumstances?
You know, sometimes I like to pretend that things have just happened to me, that I happen to be in the right place at the right time, which is sometimes true. But you have to leave the house. You have to get dressed. You have to be ready for, you know, if somebody's going to ask you to sing or something, you have to have something prepared, you know. So maybe you happen to be at the right place at the right time, but a whole lot went into being prepared in that place. So I think I need to give myself a little more credit sometimes that I've worked really hard. I mean, this ministry thing, I mean, I worked really, really hard to become a minister, and I worked really hard to, you know, get my PhD and write a book, and I worked really hard now to get this put together. And so yes, I think that you have to have some leeway, you have to have some flexibility. There is some serendipity that happens, but and you know, I always tell people, you know, get out, go out, meet people. You know, nothing's going to happen if you're, you know, what good is sitting, you know, alone in your room, you know. But when you're out there, you're not just completely, you know, clueless. Like if you have intention and you put your dream, or you sing your song, metaphorically, you put your life story into the air, and people are going to react in certain ways, and you learn from that, and maybe they pick up on something and they say like, "Oh, you know, that reminds me of, hey, you know, we're doing a thing," you know. I mean, you just never know what's going to happen, or maybe you just have dinner, and you never know what's gonna transpire from one moment to the next. But you do have to have maybe a dream or an intention. Was that it? Was that the statement that my intentions place me closer to my goals? Is that it?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. I had a fortune cookie on Friday. I ordered Chinese food for the band, and one of them opened and said, "This is for you." And it said, over prepare, and then go with the flow.
I love that.
Can you believe a fortune cookie that said that? I said, it does not say that. You showed it to me. Over prepare, over prepare, and then go with the flow. I said, well, over prepare, I know. Go with the flow is my learning edge.
That's great.
Yeah.
I wanted to have a little fun with all of you about your creative process. I read a lot of books on the creative process, and the questions that I put together today are based on my readings over the last few days. And I'm going to start with you, Helene. And the question is, in this profession, you wear so many hats, number one. Has there ever been a moment in your career when you felt like a victim in the business? And if so, when, where, and how, without mentioning any names or circumstances to give that away, that you felt like that, and what got you through that?
Well, anytime that I felt like a victim, that was me doing it to myself. I always share, because I talk a lot about this as a casting director. It's so funny, Craig. I find myself talking to actors and telling them, about mindset and what to do and da-da-da. And I go, Helene, I hope you're listening. I hope actor Helene is listening to casting director Helene. Exactly. So I know that feeling. And I tell them, there was no information out there when I was starting out. I started out in musical theater. And so if I didn't get cast, and I worked fairly often, it would be, if I could just held those note out, if I just held it out longer, or if I just did this, or I let the parameters, oh my God, I don't look ethnic, but I don't really look like a wasp. And I'm not pretty enough for the lead, but I'm too attractive to be a character. Like, I was too focused on what I wasn't. And people kept saying, be yourself. And I'm like, I'm a character actor. I have no idea what that is. Especially I used to do sketch comedy. So I'm like, I'm characters. I don't know who I am. But through the years, especially in the last decade or so, I think when you get older, you get more confident anyway, or you don't have the patience to dwell on all of it. But there's been a lot of, I've worked with life coaches, and I've taken mindset classes. And, I think sometimes in the other way, there almost is too much information out there, and you have to sometimes pull back because now you're almost on overload. But going through that, even if I send an audition off and I might think, I don't know if that was my best work. Okay, I'm done. It's like, and I know as a casting person, there's so, whether I did amazing work or not, it's there's so much other things that go through it. And so I think when I stopped trying to fit in, that's when people started casting me more.
Wow, that's great.
I just said, this is me. I've got the curly hair. I've got this. This is it. And I think that communicated itself. So yeah, nobody, I don't think, ever did it to me. That is like, I think you do a job on yourself. You can do.
Well, I think when you become truly aware of who you are, and you bring that to the table, it does make a huge, huge difference. Craig, I want to ask you the opposite of that question. The flip side, a moment where you felt like a winner in this business. And what was it about that time frame? And maybe you feel like a winner now, but a specific moment and what that experience was like for you.
A winner. That's hard for me. A winner. I should have probably felt more like a winner a lot of the time. And hopefully I will be able to do that. I didn't, I think sometimes people get into this business because they never feel like a winner, and maybe they need some support or some approbation or, I think certainly, and then again, you feel like a winner and then you find it. Yeah, so I felt, I guess, like a winner when I got the call that I was going to be Marius in the Broadway production of Les Miserables, and I'd only done one show, and it was, and then it turns out probably I you used to talk about casting things.
Mhm.
I think the costume they already had like fit me, because they had to order the costumes from London, and it took like 5 months to make the costumes. So they needed somebody. I don't know if that's true. Surely there were other people, but I mean, sometimes when you feel like a winner, there are really other circumstances, and I get a little nervous about feeling like a winner. On the other hand, I think it's good to feel at least a sense of accomplishment. I would feel more. A winner suggests a loser or something, I think, but a sense of accomplishment, and I'm really feeling lately. I mean, I'm doing so many things, so it's an accomplishment just getting through each day. It's like a jigsaw puzzle, but I'm really feeling like this is something I'm not doing for money, I'm doing it for love. Back in the day, you had to do the shows because you had to pay the rent or whatever. And so now I have a job, and it's not like on Wall Street or anything, but now I'm doing it because I want to share sort of my story. So I'm going to allow myself to feel a little bit accomplished, just that I got to this moment where it's going to be okay for me to do this again, and in a whole new way.
That's great. Judi, do you want to weigh in on anything that's just been said?
Yeah, well, I can so relate to both. Times when I've, similar to what I mentioned actually at the top of the show, Richard. When you asked me about things you would have done differently or whatever, a choice that I made that was disastrous. I mean, it was just disastrous. I wound up working. This was in my TV news days, and I just stopped doing TV news and had a newborn baby, and a friend of mine turned me on to this job to do in the meantime that I could also, I was nursing, that I could take the baby with me. It was one of those, right? So I just took it without really looking into what this thing was. And it turned out the guy was a crook. I mean, he was just like a horrible, human being, truly, just crooked. And I found myself in this situation that was horrible, and it took a lot to get out of it. But I can also, at this point in my life, I've had enough successes in both of my careers that I can look back on it and say, yeah, I have accomplished a lot, and as I mentioned on our show, I think it was last time we talked with you, I've been asked to give a talk about my life because I've had such a varied career path and whatnot. And so other people also, I guess, think I've done a lot. So it's interesting that at this point in my life, I can say, yeah, and it was a combination of a lot of hard work and a lot of luck. Definitely both. So, very, very much right place, right time, but also, a lot of work to get there.
Great.
Richard, I just wanted to insert something. I think nowadays, in the last, decade or so, there used to be a time when, because one of my jobs was I was a maitre d' of like a celebrity restaurant, and I used to joke like, I think I'm getting known for that. I hope my acting career takes up this as well. But what I was going to say is, at those days, like even in the 90s, you were not supposed to talk that you had a support job. You were an actor. If you admitted you did something else, it apparently would lessen you. That's changed now. Now, when you meet producers, directors, casting people, whatever, everybody wants to know, what else do you do? They don't want to just be with an actor. What was your background? They want to know that you had kids. They want to know you've worked in other careers. And then, of course, technology helps. So it's fun now to talk about that I was a teacher. I ran a couple sales offices, I worked in the restaurant business, and it doesn't take away. If anything, I think it adds. And, because what used to look like you were scattered or jack of all trades is now called multi-hyphenate or entrepreneur. And so, and even for you, Craig, I think in the old days, somebody chose one and then that was it, unless you left it. And the fact that you can hold all of this and be authentic and be really masterful at all of them, I think it's very exciting time.
Well, you pretty much went in the direction of what my next question was going to be.
Oh, okay.
And it was big changes that have happened in the profession since you began. I'm going to go to Craig on this. Craig, what's different with you putting this show together? We've talked about, the other aspects, but is anything different in terms of how you're going about presenting the show, bringing in your audience and everything. I mean, the business has changed a lot. I mean, when I first arrived in New York, I worked for an answering service, and everybody had pagers. And the casting director would call and they'd say, "We want to see the following actors for a go see." And then it would be my job to beep all of those actors. And the ones who got back in a fast manner were brought in to see the casting director. And if you miss that, you miss that opportunity. It was just a matter of having that beeper with you and being able to jump, because we didn't have cell phones that we walked around with all the time.
Mhm.
What's different, or what do you like about where the business is now, and what do you miss that was in place when you were doing this before?
Yeah, well, ask me in 3 months, I think. I don't exactly know what the business is like. It seems harder now. There are fewer venues. The Times, the Post, the News, like nobody covers things. There aren't reviews. There aren't, I mean, that the first show I did was at the Laurie Beachman Theater, which is one of the reasons I'm going back there, because I want, it's significant to me. But I got this Times review, and I just kind of lived off that Times review for the next years. So that doesn't exist anymore. So I think it's a lot of word of mouth. All this stuff on social media, and like putting it on Facebook and responding to people, and like doing all this stuff online. That's completely different. So, and I find it hard. I find it just hard to be doing all of that. I never really liked all the promotional stuff, but doing it all online has been really kind of fascinating. I've never done anything like that before. But I just hear from other people that it's just hard. I think there are many fewer people solely doing performing. Some of the people, more seasoned people, are getting into directing other people's acts.
That's right.
And that's how they kind of, that's how they put together a career now. But there used to be like 25, 30 people, and we just keep, you'd see everybody you'd see the last date of them, because you'd be there a day before, in San Francisco at the Plush Room, and oh, how are you? And like, you start tomorrow, and like, all these places that, you'd be down at the Colony, or, be in Palm Beach, and it'd be the same 30 people, like wherever you were in the world. And I don't know that exists anymore. I don't know that there's that kind of a circuit anymore. I think it's all haphazard. On the other hand, there's all these like pop-up places that people seem to be doing, like in Wisconsin or Indiana, or places that I never played ever. So maybe there are new ways of reaching people that didn't exist before. There were just these clubs that you went to, these supper clubs. So I'm excited to see. I mean, I'm not going to be able to go on tour or anything, but I can maybe do like an isolated. It would be fun to go back to some of the places that I loved performing so much, especially St. Louis, where my family's from, or London, where I have so many friends. But there would be wonderful places that I'd love to kind of go back and recapture the excitement of those days. But we'll see.
Well, I want to talk about a topic that I saw.
I mean, look at us right now. We're in 4 boxes.
We're in 4 boxes.
Hanging out in the ether.
We laughed at the Brady Bunch.
Yes. But, last week, 2 incredible artists that are so phenomenal were talking about the frustration that they have with getting people to respond to their emails. They're trying to get booked somewhere. And I am trying to put together a tour for the summer with my new show. And it is so frustrating to get people to just simply respond with a yes or a no. Yes, that date's available. No, that date is not available. Yes, we're interested in you. No, we're not interested in you. Just give me an answer so that I can move on, because there are certain venues that I want to play as well. And I'm trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together. And when you're trying, it's not just that one venue that I'm trying to get booked in. There are several venues that I'm trying to get booked in, and getting answers. And Judi, I want to ask you, do you deal with these frustrations in your profession?
Well, I book clients, on my timetable. But I do also, I see people on both the East Coast and the West Coast. I'm licensed both in California and in Florida. And therefore, I'm always juggling time zone differences and whatnot for those various patients and trying to make whatever, time I have available work for them as well. So that's just a juggle, a logistical juggle.
Mhm.
But for me, that's really the only difficult part of it. It's not so much frustrating. It's just sort of a juggle.
Mhm. Helene, I want to ask you, do you make New Year's resolutions? And if so, do they stick? We are now,
Mhm.
hard to believe, but in just a few days, we're going to be into the third month of this
Yes.
year.
Yeah.
Um, is this your unfolding as you had envisioned it, or has it taken on a completely different life of its own?
What do you mean? You mean the new year?
The new year, yes.
No, it's actually, I'm just a little, well, I'm always a little behind schedule. I look at things in quarters. It's just easier that way. Fall, the winter, spring, and summer. And so what I did, the winter was supposed to be my writing winter. I didn't get as much done because I've had other things come up, but I did write the same writing group this year. I was assigned a gentleman and I had to write a monologue for him. And it was really well received. I just have to tweak it. So the minute the show will be over this week. Next week, after getting taxes done, I am going to sit down. In fact, you know what I have to do in our business, as you know, Richard, we get a lot of invites, and Craig too, especially in New York, because people from out of New York, they're going, don't you get exhausted? You're going to all these things. And it's like, I know that they're imagining getting in their car, driving into the place. I go, I take a subway, and 3 of my events are in like 5 blocks apart. So, it's not the big thing. We're just used to it. But I actually said to myself, I saw 2 days next week with nothing written. And I actually wrote in the calendar, do not book these days.
Oh,
I'm going back to write. I have a lot of unfinished writing projects. One's a book. I have to rework this essay that I put in the chat, the original essay. And as I said, I'm adapting the first play I wrote into a short film. So I need to get better. But yeah, I mean, the fact that this play got picked and I am producer of it too. So yeah, it actually has unfolded rather, unfolded to what I had planned, but I need to now kind of speed it up a bit this coming month. Yeah.
Craig, I want to ask you, coming back and doing this show now, what was the impetus, first of all, for doing it now with this show after being away for a while? And what was your process in terms of putting this show together, in terms of how you put your team together? Because one of the things that I talk about often is the collaborative process. To me, is what I love the most about this business. I love working with other artists. But with yourself, getting the plan to do the show and then putting your team together.
Well, the woman Beth Ertz, who's my music director on this, I met in Princeton at a congregation. She was playing the piano at the congregation. And I could tell, and it's part of the story I tell in the show, I could tell this was not your ordinary, pianist in the congregation. I went up to talk to her afterwards, like, who are you? And so she was the one who, I guess it's been a year and a half now, said, get out your calendar. I said, okay. She said, because on Monday, whatever, you're doing a benefit for Ukraine at Lincoln Center with Metropolitan Opera people and Broadway people. I said, I am? She says, yes, you are. So let's now move on to the 2 songs you'll be doing. So, and it was like terrifying because I hadn't been, and just being on that kind of stage with that kind of people, I was absolutely terrified. And yet something happened when I was just in the green room, because we're all with masks, at different places in the green room, because it was still, but I thought, wow, I never really thought of theater people as my people, but I just feel a vibe in here. And I thought, you know what? I think think it's time to work on some other shows. And Beth said, all right, let's do it. When do we start? And so we've been working on it, but Chris, because I can't get to town, I'm getting to town more and more now, but at the time I was like, every couple of weeks I'd come in for a day and maybe we'd go over a couple songs. So that's how Beth came to be. And then she really wanted to do bass charts because she wanted to do new things with the pieces. And she's written some really, as I say, some stunning bass charts. I was so stunned I didn't know if I was going to recover the other day, but they sounded wonderful on Friday. And then I just Jeff Harner has been one of my very oldest friends in this business. I think I met him in 96 or 7 or something, and I just think he's one of the masters at the craft. And I said, I don't know how take direction I'm going to be, but I'd love you to be a part of it. And you know what? He's been really thoughtful and kind, and took a lot of. I mean, he really rearranged things and had so many wonderful things. I mean, it's just a show because of him. So that was my team.
That's great. Well, you're my team. I can't. I mean, this hour flew. I'm sorry that Lisa was not able to get here. But I'm going to bring her little flyer on. She is going to be
at that's right.
Cleveland stage on March 3rd at 7:00. So even though she's not here, she's here. So if any of you are able to go see this show or any of the shows, and all of the information will be on the YouTube channel, please do. Craig, Helene, Judi, I'm going to give you each a chance to have your final word today. It could be about anything that we spoke about that you want to build upon, anything that we didn't talk about that you wish we had, or just any final message that you want to leave everyone with. Helene, I'll start with you when I finish, and then turn it over to you, Craig, and then Judi will have the final word. My message is the same message that I give at the end of all of my shows. Go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. Mm-hmm. I don't want to get morbid here, but last week I lost 3 dear friends all on the same day. And it was like every time I turned around, Rita McKenzie, who was phenomenal performing as Ethel Merman for many, many years, just adored her. John Mayer, who wrote I'd Love to Hate Myself in the Morning for Judy Garland, and wrote an incredible book about their relationship, was a dear, dear friend of mine. And Ben Lanzarone, who was an incredible musical director, pianist out in Los Angeles. As word started unfolding throughout the day that each of them had passed away, all of a sudden on Facebook and social media, you see all the pictures that people are sharing with each of them and their favorite memories of all of them. And that's all wonderful. But I thought, wouldn't it have been nice if they'd experienced this a week ago or 2 months ago or whatever? So I always tell everyone, go out and do something nice for somebody else, but pick up the phone and call someone that you haven't spoken to in a while. Everybody, including the 3 of you, go to your Facebook friends list, and the 5th name that pops up, reach out tonight with a phone call. Not an email message, not a text message, not a private inbox message, a phone call. And let them know the difference that they've made in your life and the impact that they've made in your life. And if you do that, you're going to make an impact on their lives. And it's important because we are all, as Lena said the other night, we're a family, and we're all more connected than we're not. Regardless of what the media wants to tell us, I believe that we're more together than divided. At least it's up to each of us to do that. So reach out to that 5th person and make a phone call. As my dear friend Sean Moniger, who also became a minister, always said, we're all in the same storm, but we're in different size boats. And I always say, I don't care what size boat you're on, as long as you have a skipper by your side. I'm going to leave the screen. And Helene, it's all yours. Thank you.
My goodness. I just want to say, when at your show, when you did the whole Facebook thing, I happened to be sitting at the table with a good friend of mine. So I'm turning to her right now. And it was Alex D'Souza. And I went, Alex, you make such a difference. And she did the same thing. And we had a lovely moment. So I love that. I love people. I love finding out what they do. And yeah, it's great sharing what you do. But I just feel like to continually get inspired in life, with what's, everybody goes, with what's happening out in the world. there's always something happening in the world, or when you get an article, oh, like, the business is bad. I go, when was the business ever so great that somebody was jumping up and down? So if you can find the joy in your life, the joy in people, and just revel in that, and appreciate everyone you have in your life. And to me, that's what it's about, because you never know. One simple statement, one single thing you've said to them, that's gonna stay with them for a long time, if not the rest of their lives.
Thank you, Helene. Thank you. Craig?
I've done probably thousands of Zoom and these kind of things over the last 5 years as a minister. This is the first time I've done one as a performer, and I just want to thank Richard and you too, Judi, and wonderful to meet you, Helene. This is a wonderful entree back into talking about this craft that I love so much, and thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. It's wonderful that little pockets of friendliness and positivity exists out there in the ether. So go outside, go to something, because you're not going to meet anybody sitting in your room. And thank you so much for including me tonight.
Thank you, Craig. And I'd love to hear one of your sermons. So yes, we've been talking about, putting yourself out there for others. You also have to put yourself out there for yourself, to be gentle and loving to yourself, because that's how you can give to others. And, really appreciate the things that you have in your own life, express gratitude. That's really what self-care is about. Sometimes it's just shutting down your computer or getting off the, cell phone or something, but sometimes it means taking the time to reflect on something that gives you a good cry. And sometimes it's going deeper into your core and looking at your fears. And sometimes it's remembering things that made you laugh and made you happy and brought you joy. But regardless of what it means to you, make sure that you honor yourself today too. We'll see you in 2 weeks.